Yeah, I think that we can come back to that at the end because we have a lot of questions to get through. So
Certainly.
that'd be my suggestion, is that we try and get through more of the questions. And then if you would like to address that at the end, then I think that would be great.
Next question.
I did.
So, the next question, Ms. Hawker. Do you think it is ethical or proper to criticize Mr. Songer for having a civil servant as his campaign manager and then have your deputy be your campaign manager?
I don't think that it's appropriate for me to criticize anyone for who they choose as a campaign manager. And I think what we're referring to is that there were some cases that were referred to for investigation. And I want to speak to that a little bit. I don't investigate crimes, the sheriff does that. So the sheriff, if he feels that he's biased or has an inability to fairly look at a case, he has the ability to call on the WSP or an outside agency to investigate that case. The second component of that is legal analysis and charging decisions. And I have the ability to hand that over to the AG to make those decisions should the need arise. We had 3 cases, and normally what will happen is we'll bring in an outside investigator. They'll look at any kind of charges or allegations, and the majority of them, they'll come back to us and say there's no merit. We had 3 individual incidents, and because of the fact that we are 4 weeks to an election, I want to be very clear that our request for investigation is not me saying anyone did anything wrong. We had citizen complaints, and they needed to be looked at. Had I gone the route of saying, or the sheriff saying, we're going to have an independent investigator come in and investigate those allegations, it could have been weeks, and we still would have been up in the air, and I think that would have unduly or unfairly influenced the election. We have different races and we have a newspaper editor that published some things demanding that they be referred, and I wasn't going to take one of them and refer it and not have the others referred, my piece being to the Attorney General because they are my clients. So I'm not going to make a decision on that. We referred those cases, and one of them in the commissioner issue that was before us, that is actually not being referred to the Washington State Patrol. It's being done by the state auditor, and it was independently asked by the other commissioners to review in a state audit. And more than likely, that's not for criminal prosecution or wrongdoing. There'll be findings, or if there's any audits, misuse, or indiscretions, or any issues that we need to fix in our audits. And the other 2 were brought as citizen complaints as well, so I have made no stance on right or wrong, and I will not. That's why they were referred to someone. And then the Washington State Patrol still has the ability to come back and say, there's nothing here, we're not going to investigate. To my knowledge, the sheriff has not received a confirmation that they will or will not. And then it will be up to the Attorney General, who will say, yes, we're going to recommend charging, or we're not going to recommend charging, or there's nothing here.
Dave, do you want rebuttal?
Mrs. Carver, do you have construction experience?
Yes, I do. We had our children in Vancouver. I started building. Initially, it was just building on our own home. I was my own contractor, and then I decided to get my contractor's license and started building. So I built a couple of spec homes, did very well on those, and from that point on, I continued to build custom homes. And I built until 2003, when it just became very difficult. My children were through school, and I was commuting Goldendale, Vancouver. It was very hard. But at the end of my construction, the last house I put up was a 6,000 square foot house. It was made out of what they call ICF, so they were insulated concrete forms. It took a lot of engineering, and I had to go back to school. I had to learn a lot. I had been learning engineering all along as we were designing homes and building them, because we were dealing with custom homes. And so I built 2 of those homes since. I did another one in 2008. I have continued to build in Goldendale. We build our own rental properties. We're getting ready to start another one here in a couple of weeks. And I still do design work, so I've been a custom designer, and I've also, instead of being a contractor, people hired me to build their homes. They were the homeowner, and I was just a consultant. And I still do that too.
This one is for Dave Cannell. You have admitted to numerous career changes in your life. What assurances can you give the people of Klickitat County that if elected, you will serve a full term and not get bored and resign midterm?
I don't know what career changes you're talking about. I've been an attorney for over 12 years. I was a teacher for a year because I needed to spend a year when my wife finished her bachelor's degree. And I had a source that was able to connect me with the job as a teacher between college and law school. After law school, I've been an attorney. So I don't know what that question is about. Been here for quite some time. And not going to pull a cane on the courts and quit halfway through.
Dan, please explain your construction business. How can this not be a conflict of interest and/or insider knowledge of projects being considered by the PUD?
My construction business is a small civil construction business. I am prohibited by law from working for Klickitat PUD. I have never had my company on the small works or large works roster. I have simply never worked for KPD because it would have been conflict of interest. And as far as conflict goes, we're required by law. All commissioners will have conflict from time to time. You simply state that you have a conflict and you abstain from voting on any matter before you if there is a conflict. The bulk of my work has been orchard vineyard development. We've done a lot of site work for various wineries around the state. The last big project, we did all the site work and vineyard rehab work for Owens Row and Union Gap, Washington.
Krista, you mentioned that you're a realtor. Do you think it's a conflict of interest to be a realtor and working in the planning department? And if you win, assessor?
Actually, I've said I was a realtor. I don't say I am a realtor. When I worked in the assessor's office, I got to know a lot of realtors. They were really interested in how quickly I picked up, everything that's involved in assessors, the title companies and real estate, and so I went and got my real estate license. Then, when I was offered the job in the planning department, it would have definitely been a conflict of interest, and I went ahead and let my license expire when the term ran out. So yeah, I absolutely could not do what I'm doing now as a realtor, and I let my license settle. But I have not said I'm a realtor now. That's clearly, and even in my voter's pamphlet, there's a semicolon there, no subject, not currently a realtor.
I know what. Yeah. Is this the big thing?
That one I have a feeling he's not going to answer, but
Okay. Mr. Cannell, since you do not currently hold public office, you are an attorney. You should be able to answer. Do you believe it is possible that a crime has been committed in the case of candidate Darlene Johnson and her alleged accomplice, Ken Burrell, which has been refused or referred to the State Attorney General for investigation?
Well, I appreciate the acknowledgement that I can answer, but I think it's wise if I do not answer. And again, I'm not trying to dodge a tough question or anything. I definitely, any attorney that's looked at all these referrals probably has thoughts and has looked into it themselves, but it is simply inappropriate to make comments. There's rules of professional conduct that limit a prosecutor, or even, I believe, a potential prosecutor from commenting on a case that comes in. You don't try people in the press by making statements that could be used to complicate the prosecution, if there is a prosecution. I'm not assuming there will be.
Okay. Lori Hoffner, do you practice law in your capacity as prosecutor? And if so, why don't you try criminal cases?
Yes, I do practice law in my capacity as prosecutor. I receive over 30 requests a week on various subjects from the assessor, from the treasurer, from different entities within the county. I also routinely meet with all of my prosecutors and we make charging decisions. I sit in frequently on interviews. I review cases. That is all part of practicing law. I hire 2 senior deputies that do the felony prosecutions. When we first came in, we had some issues in our district court and I frequently appeared there. There are days when I'm the only person in the office and I can handle felony charging requests that come in. District court cases, just recently, last week, we had all of my prosecutors out. I was the only one in there. We had felony chargings, we had district court chargings, we had many different issues that came in, and there's no issues with me.
This one is for the assessor. Krista, why didn't you list all of your personal property or your well drilling business? Does your current personal property have all items listed?
So, as you know, when you have a business, you have a lot of stuff. And my husband and I are always going around and around about all the stuff that we have. I thought that I had listed all of my equipment. People generally, I mean, I can go into any business and point out 3 or 4 different things that they didn't list. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't fraudulent. The audit was last year. The fact that whether personal property was missed or not should not be a part of the political agenda. I think in the end, once we get it all straightened out, that it'll show that it's not as it's being portrayed. So anybody can omit personal property.
It's funny, but anyway, Mr. Cannell. In Bickleton, you said that as prosecutor, you would enforce every law. How about RCW 70.54.050? No person may walk in public if he or she has the common cold.
That's Title 70 is not in the criminal code. I've never heard of that. I remember growing up, I lived in Arizona in high school, and I believe there's a requirement to have a gun on you at all times if you're over 18 and outside the human city limits. That's how it goes. But again, that would be quickly invalidated by the judiciary.
Lori Hoffner. Your opponent makes big issues of statistics on the state court website. Are those state stats accurate reflections of your performance? If not, why not?
In my administration, we don't pay attention to the stats. And what you're looking at on there, some of them are accurate. AOC frequently is not updated. When you look at other prosecutors' offices, especially big prosecutors' office, Kittitas County being one of them, Kitsap County, excuse me, they prosecute solely on statistics. Over 40% of all the charges referred to them, they decline. You have to be careful when you're looking at those crimes, when things are coming before you, and when you are making your charging decisions. Frequently, what we do in our office, if we have a case where drugs are involved, we have a very strong drug court. We'll refer that case to drug court. The person is put on probation for 2 years. One of the requirements is that they pay all of the restitution and that they have a certain amount of demerits allowed, but basically they have to stay clean for that amount of time. If at the end of that time they can kick the drugs, they can become productive, all of those charges are dismissed. We charge them ahead of time and we dismiss them. We don't look at it and say, okay, we're not going to do a drug court because it's going to look bad on the stats. The bigger counties do prosecute based on what the stats are. In my office, it's the impact on the community and what we're doing in each case by case. Recently I had a case, an assault victim, and I had a grandma come in and she talked to me. We talked about the case. We talked about the issues that were involved. It was referred to mediation. There's a result that is affecting that family and they're able to put the pieces back together and they're doing very well. If I was stat driven, I would say, nope, can't prosecute that because it's going to look bad for our stats. There's more to running a prosecutor's office than looking at stats.
How do you evaluate performance without some sort of objective measurement? The question isn't being somewhere in the middle of the pack. The issue is that objective measurements put our county dead last, and dismissals and convictions and case delays. That's not just all stats or whatever. Objective measurements demonstrate we're last in the state.
When we're looking at stats as well, we're one of the few counties that allow officers to direct file in misdemeanor courts. Most large counties do not allow officers to write any citations whatsoever. They come into the prosecutor's office, the prosecutor decides what's written and what's not written. Frequently we have gross misdemeanor charges. We had one that came in, a young woman threw a gobstopper at another person. Things like that if we're not going to prosecute. And when they're direct filed, the officer cites on scene. Later we may find that we don't have the evidence, victims don't want to testify, lack of cooperation, there's numerous reasons. When you take away that direct filing, you can have a very positive impact on your stats, as well as the felonies. When you have individuals that's all they do is prepare for stats and look at the filing procedures and what you allow to be filed, it can have a big impact on those. So I think the stats, while statistics, they say you can make them say whatever you want, you're comparing things that are not comparing apples to oranges. It's not the same thing, and the stats do not reflect anything that's actually happening.
And folks, I'm talking about felonies. There is no direct filing of felonies anywhere in the state of Washington by officers. I've been talking about felonies all along.
The next question is directed to David Cannell. You said that you would be the prosecutor in all high-profile cases. How well qualified do you think you are to try these cases when you've only won one case and have only been to court less than 8 times?
Well, that's a lie. That's a lie that I've only won one case. Simple fact. Other lies spread by my opponent. I have promise stickers on my car, or that I'm going to hire Julie Vance and I'm going to fire the entire staff. These are misstatements of fact. And what I said is I intend to take the lead on high-profile cases because I believe that's the obligation of the elected, to stand before the people and be held accountable by the people. It boggles my mind that is trying to be portrayed as a controversial statement. There's 4 attorneys in the office. We're a rural county. No one's heard of a rural county in which the elected doesn't appear in court. You should look for the opportunity to appear in court. You should look for the opportunity to demonstrate to the public you're doing your job. This is your job.
Can I Rebecca?
Yes, go ahead.
While it's nice to want to make a headline for yourself and be in the papers, we want to ensure that the most qualified people are trying those cases, and Mr. Cannell simply is not the most qualified person to try high-profile felony cases. Those are murders, those are rapes, those are serious offenses, and in this state we have to have competency, capital training. Are you qualified as a capital attorney? There's cases that we want to make sure we have the best people that are doing them day in and day out. That's why we have senior prosecutors and a chief criminal prosecutor.
We're getting through the list. Oh, okay. The next one is for the assessors. It says, please explain the levy process. Krista first.
To simplify the levy process is basically, you have all the budgets of all the taxing districts. Your taxing districts are like the state schools, your cemetery districts, your rec districts, the county, your public works, road. All of those have a budget. The budget is limited by a 1% increase in every year. So you take all of their budgets and you take the assessed value within an assessment neighborhood, you divide their budgets by that, and that would give you the levy rate. It's a little more complicated than that, you know, when you break it down, but basically, so, you know, everybody can understand it, that's the nuts and bolts of it.
So the first step in the levy process is figuring out what the assessed value is of our property. We send out, we set our values typically at the end of June. You get notices, well, at the end of May, you get notices in June. That is your assessed value. You get 30 days from that date to appeal that value. Then we send out our new construction notices in September, and those are the values that we use to calculate the levy rates on. In November, September, November, all of your taxing districts are going to start to have their budget hearings. They're going to have hearings, you get to go in, you get to talk to your fire districts. They tell you what they're going to be spending their money on that next year. We have about 63 to 64 different taxing districts in Klickitat County. Those people all bring their budgets to us. They have a resolution and then a levy request. There's actually 5 different ways that their budgets can be limited. So it's very important the way they fill out their paperwork. It's very important that we work with them to make sure their paperwork's correct. We work very hard to do that. Last year, we had about a $3.5 billion value in the entire Klickitat County. And we helped determine about $33 million in levies for all of these different taxing districts. It's very important. You want to make sure that you have someone that is supervising this and working with this so that you don't make mistakes. You don't want someone that might accidentally, make this mistake and I forgot to do this. It's very important because it can affect your taxing districts. There is the ability to correct for a levy mistake in the following year, but it's much better if you get it right the first time around.
The next question is for Mr. Cannell. When you filed with the Public Disclosure Commission, you listed your wife as your campaign treasurer. She listed a Hood River address, a resident address. Were you living in Klickitat County when you filed, or did you move here right basically when you filed for the purpose of qualifying for candidate?
I don't believe there's a Hood River address listed for my wife. No, I did not move here to file. I really don't believe that's true at all. I inputted the contact information for my address in High Prairie. I'll double check. And if so, that's years out of date.
And I believe that this one is for both prosecuting attorney candidates. With about 20 trial dates available per year and over 200 adult felony arrests, the number of cases heard in court. Oh, how would you increase the number of cases heard in Superior Court? Did you understand that, or would you like me to repeat it?
I'd like to hear it again.
With about 20 trial dates available per year and over 200 adult felony arrests, how would you increase the number of cases heard in Superior Court? And then down at the bottom, there's these, oh, okay. Oh. Okay.
Well, I would take advantage of the trial settings. I think the average the last 4 years is about 5 to 6 trials a year. I believe there's actually 22 to 23 trial settings generally in the Christmas break. There isn't one there's availability of more trial settings through a commissioner that's been appointed to help out the Superior Court judge. It's possible to get up to 40 if necessary. So the reason pushing things to trial, it shouldn't be the goal. It's a fair and just resolution that represents the interest of the individuals involved. In fact, 90-something% of criminal cases resolve through plea negotiations in every jurisdiction around. What I object to isn't necessarily, what I'm not saying is everything goes to trial. That's foolhardy. But it shouldn't take forever to get a trial done. Again, when you're at the bottom and you have the longest case delays in the state, there's not active management going on in the office to oppose continuance requests and to force the prosecutors handling the cases to be prepared. We're seeing this again and again. Just in the last couple of weeks, a serious felony case was dismissed because of mismanagement in the office, making headlines. That's just one instance in which the police chief referred to just complete lack of coordination with law enforcement. You get into each case early, you get to know the case, you get to, your witnesses involved, especially in law enforcement, and you conclude it in a timely manner. The defense bar, if there's good facts, will want to go to trial. If there's good law, they'll file a briefing. If they don't have either, they just want to delay. Because witnesses fade, cases deteriorate, witnesses move away. And especially having some experience on the defense bar, I know the games that they're playing and how to put a stop to it. It's real simple. Just stand up for the victims and law enforcement and get the job done and take advantage of as many trial settings as you need to based on the pending caseload and the willingness of the guilty to take responsibility.
I think Mr. Cannell is purposely misleading the people here. The majority of all cases, the continuances we do object to, he knows very well that the judge, because they're going to ensure that the defendant receives a fair trial, they're going to grant those continuances. Him himself, he's withdrawn from cases very close to trial. We had to appoint another attorney to take the case. He's done the same as the district court cases that we've had. When those things happen, when defense requests for the continuance, the majority of all of those cases, and the prosecutors are both here, talk to them, they request that the continuance be denied. The judges are not going to deny them if there is any speck of a reason why. We also deal with vacations in our officers. The officers are at training, they're at vacation, so you have to coordinate. Is your officer available? Is your expert available? And defense can claim that they have a trial somewhere else. Whatever it comes up, the judge is going to be very liberal in granting those continuances. If we move for a trial and there's any reasonable any reasonable chance that that defendant was prejudiced because the defense attorney was pushed to trial too soon, we will lose on the appeals. Before we outsourced all the appeals, we do them all in-house now, and we know that, and the judge knows that as well. So if we push something to trial, and the judge were to push it to trial, we don't get to decide what's continued and what's not continued. If you push it to trial, and the defense attorney isn't competent or unable to do that, then that's what they're going to claim on appeal, and they will win. Then we have to try it all over again. So it's a waste of resources, a waste of time, it's a waste of money. It has nothing to do with the competency of my attorneys. Yes, there was mention in the paper of one case where we had an officer that on Monday, we didn't know that he was available. We are working with case management software. We are juggling schedules of many, many officers. He wasn't available. On Wednesday, we told the judge he is not available due to having a medical procedure. The judge said, had he told us on Monday, we wouldn't dismiss, but we are dismissing now. That does happen. It happens in every single administration. Unfortunately, we do have a paper that instead of putting things like murder trials and conviction rates and when things go well, the one time something does go wrong, they're going to publish it. I think it speaks more to a bias in some of the things that are going on, but my opponent does know that it's not the prosecution that drives continuances.
That's a misstatement of fact that her office routinely objected to continuances. It's only in the last 3 months since I've raised the issue that they've actually been standing before the judge and demanding explanations. It's simply a misstatement of fact. Ask the clerks, ask the judges, ask the defense bar, they'll confirm that. It's not true. And her campaign keeps trying to bring up that I withdrew from a case after I announced that I was running for prosecutor. that's a conflict for me to maintain the representation once I've announced for a prosecutor and made arrangements for another attorney to take over the case, and he was ready to go. That case should have been resolved before, but her office requested 2 continuances previously on that case. So this is a non-issue. We need the honesty out here, and especially from someone that is in court would know what's going on. There has not been a regular practice of objecting to continuances, and that's simply a mistake. And honoring speedy trial rights and demanding a defense attorney to be prepared doesn't justify being the worst in the state, the slowest to resolve felonies.
That's not the only instance of Mr. Cannell withdrawing from cases. There have also been district court cases where he cited inability to get along with his clients. He's withdrawn. We've had to appoint other counsel, other attorneys. We have a small attorney pool. They are allowed to continue that case to get up to speed. There are other reasons as well.
Are there any more cards?
No more cards, and we seem to be beating up on the attorneys. There's a few more cards for the attorneys, but we're going to stop there.
It has also been 2 hours, which is kind of a limit for meetings.
One thing that I would offer is we failed to give you your 3-minute introduction. If you want to do a quick, I don't know if you guys want to, just come.
I like the way you did it.
I'm fine.
We could all recite each other's.
I know.
I think we all thank everybody for showing up.
Yes,
I think it's
thank
very
you.
simple.
We do have it all on video too.
And I will post it. And if you want a copy, you can give me your email address. One thing I will announce is we are working on another candidates night for the county commissioners and sheriff on the 23rd.
And the LDs.
And the LDs if they'll show up. They're probably way too busy, but
Where's that?
we're working at it.
Where? Here?
Here,
Same time, same place.
on the 23rd.